Welcome, everyone. Lovely to have you here. Welcome to IECL, the Institute of Executive Coaching and Leadership. My name is Mandy Geddes. I'm IECL's Director for Coach Education, and I'm really delighted to spend this next hour with you, having a little bit of a chat about coach education and just giving you a bit of a sense of how IECL works and what it is we do. And also, what is this thing called coaching? So IECL, your Center of Excellence for Organizational Coaching. And I should just mention right up front today that we are going to be talking entirely about organizational coaching today, also known as executive coaching, but we have our reasons for not calling it executive coaching. And you don't really need to necessarily have an ambition to be an organizational coach to learn to coach with us. However, if you want to become an organizational coach, we recommend that you learn to coach with us because there are some really important differences with organizational coaching, and you don't want to step into an organization to coach and not have already encountered those differences and thought about how you will engage with the organization and how you will encounter that three-way relationship that inevitably comes up between the coaching client and the sponsor in the organization and the coach. So it is a more complex context. So we'll talk today about that context. However, if you're interested in learning to coach and taking it into another niche, which many of our alumni have successfully done over the years, then you're very welcome to do that. So jumping right in, a little bit of an overview about IECL. So IECL has been around since 1999, so we'll be 24 years old in February. We're growing up and we've always worked in the space of organizational coaching. We started out in Sydney, Australia as a tiny company with just two founders, and when they formed IECL, it was really in response to feeling a need for executive coaching in Australia, where there really wasn't any in 99. And since then, we have grown into the coach training space. We also provide coaching to both organizations, individuals, and teams. And we also train coaches, both in public and private courses, so open to the public and also private within organizations. And we also provide all kinds of different leadership solutions. So those are the three main areas of our business. Today, we're mainly going to be talking about the coach accreditation space, coach education. IECL provides coach certification, coach accreditation, and pathways to ICF, or International Coaching Federation credentials. So there's a whole bunch of words there. We're going to get into detail about all of that today. So don't worry if it doesn't make sense just yet. And as you can see from this map, we have coaches and coach trainings throughout the world, both virtually, mainly, and also in some key cities face-to-face from time to time. Not so often anymore, but from time to time we do run face-to-face coach training, mainly Sydney, Melbourne, and Singapore. So moving right along, I'm going to introduce you to one of our senior faculty, Tony Butler. And Tony has been coaching for many years. She's lived and worked all across the world, but particularly in the Asia Pac area. Tony teaches our coach training level 1 and 2. And she's going to share some of the secrets around coaching, what it is and what it's not. So over to you, Tony.
Thanks, Mandy, and welcome everybody. It's so lovely to see, as Human said in the chat, a very diverse and global audience. And I guess, can I just say, I know Mandy's going to talk to you all a little bit later about what the programs look like, but one of the things that I absolutely love around our programs is how diverse our classrooms are. You can be in a class with people from all around the world, and even just looking at the chat now, and I'm from this country but grew up in a different country, and I'm now living in a third country, and that's just the way of the world these days, and that makes for such a very rich learning experience. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of coaching. Why are you here? And I know some of you have said into the chat that you're looking at either wanting to become a coach, wanting to seek a credential. Some of you are perhaps HR and learning practitioners in organizations wanting to bring more of a coaching approach into your organization and create that coaching culture is a term that often gets used. And oftentimes we have many of you in the room are also leaders who want to bring more of a coaching approach to your leadership. Because we know, you're reading books like John Whitmore, one of the founders of, of the modern day coaching. There's even studies where they suggest that it's the leader behavior that can have up to a 30% impact on an organization's bottom line. And so leader as coach is one of those fundamental skills that we know can have a more significant impact in the organization. But what is this thing called coaching? And one of the ways that we approach this question is to look at what coaching is not. Coaching fundamentally is a conversation. Coaching is a different quality of conversation. And if you think about this in the organizational context, there are many different types of conversations that we have in our everyday. There are also different hats or roles that we play in our leadership in organizations each day. And 3 of those roles or hats are listed here. So there's the role of being a manager, there's the role of being a trainer, and the role of being a mentor. And so if we look at what coaching is not through this lens, it starts to actually enable us to have a much clearer definition around what coaching is. So if you think about managing, when I'm managing, I'm usually giving direction, I'm having to allocate resources. If you think about what you do in terms of the quality of the conversations that you have as a manager, I'm probably being more directive and more telling. And so thinking about that, we can see that there's a strong telling approach. In training, we do this every day in our roles as faculty. We're training you to be better coaches. And oftentimes, if you think about that, as a trainer, there's a certain degree of expertise or experience that I bring to the table that I want to share and impart to the trainee. And again, so if I think about that, there's much more of a telling, sharing my expertise in that conversation. The mentoring conversation is one I'm sure you're all familiar with. I'm sure you've all been mentors or had mentors of your own. And that's where you're bringing more of your own wisdom, worldly experience to bear in service of your mentee. And so there's might be a little bit of telling in there, a little bit of sharing some stories in there. Again, you can see that there's a little bit more of sort of pushing or putting information into the conversation. Whereas in coaching, the difference between these 3, where as the manager, the trainer, or the mentor, we're putting information in, as the coach, I'm actually pulling information out. So it's much more of an asking approach as opposed to a telling approach, for want of a simpler term. And so when we think about coaching, and we talk about this in our programs as we introduce coaching to you, we start to make this clearer distinction between what coaching is versus managing, training, mentor, and indeed a number of other roles that you might hold even in your organization or even as a leader. And so we can start to think about this in terms of, well, if that's what coaching is coaching is more of an asking type conversation. It's more of an inquiry conversation. It's a conversation where I know that the person I'm working with, we call them a coaching counterpart. If I know my counterpart has capability to learn and grow for themselves and uncover, I guess be able to improve their performance and has the capacity for that, then I'm approaching that conversation with a different mindset. What it also means is, as a leader, as coach, I can be thinking about how do I bring more of that coaching approach to even my manager role, my mentoring role, my trainer role, etc. So hopefully I'm making that relatively clear. It's a big topic. Sometimes even I can get lost in it and I can go on for a little bit longer, but hopefully that will just give you a little bit of a flavor and at least an introduction to how we're starting to think about this idea of coaching against these other pieces. Mandy, I might ask you to move on to the next role, because I'm also mindful that I started to talk around, what's this mindset of a coach? And so even as a coaching leader, what's the mindset I need to hold in order to be able to bring out the best of those that I'm working with? And one of the things that we teach in our programs is what we call the potential formula, or the coaching mindset. And this is where we know that very often in organizations, people are not necessarily maximizing their potential. And so the level of performance that we see of an individual doesn't always equal their potential. And the reason for that is because there are oftentimes some things getting in the way, which we call interferences. Now, this work comes from Tim Galway's work. If any of you are familiar with The Inner Game of Tennis, The Inner Game of Golf, and he wrote a whole series of books, including The Inner Game of Work. Tim Galway actually created this performance formula. But if we think about this from a very formulaic perspective, if we want to grow performance or raise performance in an organizational context, then we have two choices. We can seek to grow and increase the potential or tap into the potential of the individual we're working with, or we can manage the interferences. And there are many interferences in the organizational context. So maybe just so you can have a rest from my voice for a moment, let me invite you to take a moment to think about what are the things that you're experiencing today that might be getting in the way of you operating at your full potential. And if you just take, you don't have to share this with anybody, but just take a moment. You might want to just write a few things down. I know sometimes that, it could be a little bit of self-doubt plays into me being in my full potential, or it might be that I'm too busy running around and not being organized, a big interfering with my potential. Sometimes it's the technology or the systems that are not behaving as they would. There might be some gremlins in my computer. These are all interferences. Sometimes it could be the quality of the relationship. And so the reason we talk about this mindset is because if we have a potential mindset, if we can recognize that everybody is doing the best they can with what they have, and we can start to tap into that potential and start to look at how we can manage the interferences, will grow performance. And so thinking about those interferences, another framework that we teach in our program as one of our foundational skills is this idea of the coaching landscape. Mandy, I might get you to move on to the next slide. Thank you. And this coaching landscape really enables us to think about the organization as a system. And this is one of the key distinctions between the work we do as organizational coaches, is we are always thinking about not just the individual, but how is the individual operating in the organizational system. And sometimes the system is not just the organization itself, but what else is going on in the broader environment. And so with this lens, what that does is it starts to enable us as organizational coaches to listen into and explore lots of different areas that could be potential areas for growth, potential areas for managing. If you think about those few interferences that you just wrote down, you might find that some or all of them, some of them will fit into different parts of this quadrant. So one of these quadrants here, you'll notice is things like mindset, beliefs, values, self-talk. So, I mentioned, for example, that sometimes it might be my self-doubt that gets in the way of my ability to be at my best and to be fully maximizing my potential. That would sit up in here. If I'm holding the mindset of a coach that I don't believe that you have the best of intentions or the capacity or the capability, then that's going to influence the way I show up and engage with you in that interaction. So mindset is really important, all of these pieces in here. One of the other interferences might be something that sits on that top right-hand side there: behaviors, actions, skills, body language, even our personal appearance. If you think about the various leaders that you've worked with, what are those leader behaviors that you've experienced that have impacted that leader's ability to be truly impactful? Yeah. And so these might be some of the interferences. Or what are those behaviors that, or skills that a leader demonstrates that enables them to be really effective? If we go down to the bottom left of this graph, this model, we start to see some other things around culture, relationship dynamics, networks, and politics. And I know I'm not explaining this graph. I'm going to leave a little bit of a mystery there for you, at least when you come to our programs. These things are other things. So what are those interpersonal relationships? What are the team dynamics that are happening in your organization? If you think about the politics in your organization, how is that interfering with your ability to be at your best? What's the culture of your organization? How does that support you or interfere? And then if you go to the bottom right, there are some of the external factors around environment, structure, policies, and procedures. And one of the things we know about systems is systems, each part of the system doesn't operate in isolation. They are all interdependent. And so are all of these things. So if we take something like, maybe, Rosella, would you mind very much if I was to pick on you? Because I can see that your camera's on and you're in my screen. And I wonder if I might invite you to join me for a moment, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you so much. Rosella, I'm wondering if there was one interference that you noted for yourself that you would be happy to share with us, what would that be?
Yeah, actually I wrote down pleaser, because I've been through a couple of coaching rounds, and one of the saboteurs, I think you call them, is being a pleaser, and I've noticed that. So being pleasing towards others, or sometimes trying to do the right thing for others before actually, maybe, as you would say, tapping into my own potential, actually sets me back. So
lovely. Rosella, thank you for sharing that. Now, I don't know anything about Rosella, so I'm not going to ask you any more questions, Rosella, but I'm going to make up a story about you, if that's okay. Now, this is totally not true, because I have no idea who Rosella is. I've never met you before. But what I'm hearing in there is Rosella is the pleaser saboteur. You heard that. So that sits up in that sort of mindset, beliefs, the self-talk. Yeah. And if I was working with Rosella as one of my counterparts, I might be hearing that and going, so I might ask a question to say, Rosella, what does the pleaser have you doing? And so I would be exploring that top right quadrant here. So what's the behaviors? So, the pleaser might have Rosella, doing too much, never saying no to other people, for example. Yeah. And if I was to then look at, and it's in no particular order, by the way, but I might go, if I look at the bottom right of this structure, I go, so what is it that's happening in your organizational system that holds you and enables you to stay in this pleaser role? What is what is your role, or what else is happening around this, that in your environment that maintains you in that pleaser space? And it could be, well, my environment is one where it's really highly demanding, and it's a culture, it's an organization where we've got lots of deadlines and, you know, things have to be done just so. And so that might be playing into this pleaser. If we go into the bottom left, we might say, well, what else is going on in here? So, oh, well, there's also this, you know, as part of that, there's this organizational culture where none of us say no to each other, or, you know, perfection is really important. So, you know, we can't make mistakes. So we can see, and now I'm making a whole lot of stuff up around this story, so as you can see, but what I'm hoping that I'm starting to illustrate for you all around this is that you can see that all of these different quadrants are interdependent. And so whatever it is we're looking at, if in this case we took a really simple interference in Rosella's case of the pleaser and sort of put that in the middle, again, what is it that might be contributing to this? Or where is it that we might be able to explore so that we can begin to unpick and address and make some change in Rosella's world in this context? So that's a really simple example. And I've used a fairly negative one there with an interference, but of course, one of the things we also teach in our programs is how we use this framework in lots of different ways. And we actually use this model even in terms of the way we teach ethics, the way we teach strengths-based coaching, etc. So it's just giving you a sense of what makes it different in our work versus some other coaching work, in that we're always looking at the broader organizational system, because we don't operate in isolation of the system or of other people. And this is a really key distinction in the work of IECL. Mandy, I think that's my part done and dusted for now, unless there are any particular questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Tony. Does anyone have any questions about any of that before we move on?
And I'm very mindful that was just a bit of a taster of some of the key things that we teach in our program. So hopefully that will give you a flavour of what's different. And Rosella, thank you very much, by the way, for allowing me to pick on you.
We probably spend about 3 hours on what Tony just spent about 20 minutes on in the course. So you've got literally a taste of our coach training level 1.
Back to you, Mandy.
All right. Thank you so much, Tony. Let's move on. I've noticed in the chat.
Sorry, I just processed a bit slowly, but I do have a question actually. Like in any of the courses, because you did mention that in the right quadrant, there is a part about body language, and then you further that by saying also sometimes even appearance. I mean, this is very specific to the industry I work in. I work in fashion, so appearance, not so much body language as well, but especially appearance can sometimes play a role, but then it's completely not correct to be tapping into that area of somebody. So is there a part where in coaching or in the courses, for example, you could also be talking about these kind of things that aren't really about your behaviors or about your actions in a delicate way or in an appropriate way?
Yeah, I get the key message that I think we're wanting to impart with a model like this, Rosella, is our job as coaches is not to look at just one narrow frame. So it's very easy to be distracted by, well, it's your pleaser mindset, or it's just that behavior, or it's this that's going on. One of what this framework is really trying to illustrate and embed in us as coaches when we teach this is that we need to be taking a holistic approach when we're working with our counterparts, because there will always be parts of the organizational system and the individual system that can be leveraged to better effect. Does that answer your question? And I know I'm keeping that because you've got a very specific, and I'm happy to talk about that offline. But that's the key thing of this is, you know, we might be avoiding one part of the system and focusing too much attention on the other. But hopefully through that illustration, you start to see that they are all interlinked.
And I guess the thing I would add to that, Tony, is just that, you know, the whole person comes to work and they bring with them everything about themselves. So they bring all of their home and other life history, other jobs, everything. They bring it all to work with them. So we coach the whole person, and we teach our coaches to coach the whole person in this system. So you're coaching everything.
And what this does too is it starts to help us manage our biases as coaches. But we're getting into a big topic, as Mandy said. This is, we spend, several hours on these little pieces.
Okay, thank you for that question. That was very, very relevant there. Let's move on. And I'm aware there are a couple of questions in the chat box that I think we are about to answer them. And if we don't, we will get to them very soon afterwards. I'm just showing you this kind of complicated slide really briefly. I'm not going to go through all of this because that would take an hour. I just wanted to show you this as the landscape of the basic IECL coach training. And we're going to just hone in a minute on the top left of this landscape. But you can see we have level 1 certification and level 1 accreditation and level 2 certification, level 2 accreditation. And there are options to go across to broaden your coaching or to go down and deepen your coaching. So there's lots of different pathway options. Everything, however, no matter what you want to do, starts with level 1 certification. So we're just going to spend the next little while just talking about level 1 certification because this is kind of the foundation, I guess, upon which everything else is built at IECL. And this is the coach training that we have been offering since 1999. It's a training that we are, I'd say, almost famous for. Most people, once they do level 1, go out and tell everyone they know, you should do this level 1. And people especially tell their boss because they realize often that they would like to have a boss who knows the things that we teach in level 1, which is a lot around listening, asking good questions, listening again, listening to the answer, and it creates more of a coaching culture, if you like, in an organization rather than a command and control culture. So this training is our absolute basic foundation for both those people who are interested in becoming a coach, but also for organizations that consult with us because they're interested in changing the culture of the organization. And this is the kind of basic course that allows people to understand what coaching is and is not, as Tony touched on briefly, but also to understand how coaching works and how to listen, how to ask great questions that are open, that actually lead people to think differently and act on the new thinking, which is really a very quick definition of coaching, getting people to think differently and act on their new thinking. So this level 1 organizational coaching certification is a course that takes about 7 weeks part-time. The only full-time part is a 3-day workshop. It is a course that is designed for those people who may be brand new to coaching and have never done any coach training at all. However, we also have in this course often many quite experienced coaches who want to gain some kind of qualification or credential, or they want to understand how to coach in organizations. So they often will come back and do this basic course. And we've got a lot of very experienced coaches working at IECL, and we made them all go back and start with level 1, didn't we, Tony? So it's not remedial, and it's not really like, oh gosh, I have to go through all this again. Everyone gets something out of level 1 because it's really about learning the IECL language and frameworks around organizational coaching and things like that. That mindset, the P equals P minus I mindset, that is really the underpinning of how the coach approaches their coaching counterpart. That they view them as someone who is resourceful, that does know the answers and is the expert in their own life, rather than the coach feeling that they are going to step in and provide all the expertise. So the 7-week program starts online, 2 weeks part-time. We have a very social online learning environment. So you pop into your class that is just dedicated for your cohort, a maximum of 20 students and 2 faculty members, people like Tony. And in that classroom, you start to watch some videos of coaching, you start to listen to some podcasts, do some reading, and you're really beginning to engage with some ideas around what coaching is and is not. So the mind starts to tick, and you also get to read the commentary of your cohort and their views and insights into coaching. And so you're starting to form the basic group that you're going to work with. Then you come into the workshop, whether that be face-to-face or online in Zoom like we are today. Increasingly, we are online in Zoom, and we're actually loving the online classroom for all kinds of reasons. And we'll get into some of them in the questions, but just really quickly, we find that the Zoom room is a very democratic learning space. We're all seated in the front row. We are all equally able to pop our hand up and speak. We do frequently throughout our 3-day workshops go around and hear from everyone in the room, so you can't really hide down the back. We pop you into breakout rooms frequently so that you can do coaching practice. We come around and visit you in the breakout rooms so we can give you feedback. There's plenty of opportunity to communicate with the faculty privately or publicly via the chat box. And for all kinds of reasons, we're finding the learning outcomes in Zoom are really as strong, if not stronger, than face-to-face. And I personally think that, especially for people who might be a bit more introverted, that to learn how to coach in Zoom is less confronting. You can have your little cheat sheet next to you if you need to when you're doing your coaching practice. It's not quite as scary as sitting down opposite a real live human being and coaching. So for all kinds of reasons, we do find that the Zoom room is great learning environment. I think probably also it's more accessible. So for people who can't travel into the CBD for 3 days and leave the kids and cats and dogs and everyone at home, you know, sometimes the kids and cats and dogs are there in the background visiting from time to time, and we're totally fine with that. In fact, we encourage them to come visit. It actually is the new normal, I think, that we are all humans with real lives, and we do have all kinds of people in the background, and it works just fine. So the main thing is that you've got a good, reliable device and good, reliable internet connection. If you don't have that, we would encourage you to jump on a plane and come and learn with us face to face. So after that workshop, we see you back online in that social learning environment. There's lots of reflection on learning. There's lots of practice. You probably do 65–70% of the time in the workshop practicing, and then there's more practice after that, because we have found over almost 24 years, that's what makes a good coach. And we don't do role play, we do real play. So we make you coach each other on real coaching scenarios that are happening in your workplace. So you start to understand how a coaching question that we will give you when you first start out impacts that person you're coaching, and the kinds of questions that don't have as much impact. And you start to see the lights come on for your coaching counterpart in your practice sessions. And then through being coached as well as coaching, you start to really feel how this stuff actually works. So we also get you to reflect on your practice in a written reflective learning task. You submit that about a month after your workshop, and we mark that. And once that is marked and passed, then you are a certified organizational coach, level 1. As you can see in the top right of this slide, if you're a member of IECL, you then can use that post-nominal IECL, and you can say on your marketing collateral or on your email signature that you are IECL level 1 certified organizational coach. So that is level 1. I'm going to just move on from there to just show you how that level 1 certification fits in the journey to become an associate certified coach with ICF. So if you've looked into coaching at all, you may have come across ICF, the International Coach Federation, and you may have come across these credentials: ACC, PCC, MCC. So ACC is for coaches with at least 100 hours of coaching practice logged, 75 hours of which are paid, and when you've got those 100 hours, you can apply to ICF for this ACC credential. So it's not a qualification. We issue the qualifications and ICF issues the credentials. However, that credential does hold weight out in the marketplace. Most purchasers of coaching know that it's not that easy to get an ICF credential. And so it is something worth striving for. So the program that we offer includes IECL Level 1 certification, followed by IECL Level 1 accreditation, which is a different kind of a structure to certification. So accreditation is very much about embedding Level 1 certification. So it actually takes place over 12 weeks. There are 3 half-day workshops, and they're separated by 3 weeks each. And in between each of those workshops, you're working with your coaching cohort in the program, as well as a mentor. So you're starting to get more one-on-one mentoring on your coaching and reflecting on what you're doing well and what you could improve on. We're looking at the ICF core competencies of coaching, and we're looking at how you are doing against those competencies. So we're really lining you up for success in stage 3 of the program, which is the ACC one-on-one mentoring and performance evaluation. So once you've been through that 12-week accreditation, you are eligible, if you would like to go on for ACC mentoring. And once you start that, we just connect you with one of our mentors who are all PCC or MCC coaches, and they work with you individually, helping you to really refine your coaching practice. And then when you're ready, you go through the performance evaluation with us, and then we sign you off as ACC and give you the certificate that enables you to go to ICF with your 100 hours logged. And after paying the ICF's fees and passing ICF's exam, which takes about 4 hours maximum, you are then an ACC. So you can have that post-nominal after your name as well. So as you can see here, I'll just show you on the slide, this badge here, this is the ICF Level 1 Coach Education, and those are the IECL 3 programs that make up ICF Level 1. So ICF Level 1 is a new designation that ICF have really just released this year, and we have just been awarded this designation and the ability to accredit people at ACC level. Rosella asking, do you have?
Yeah, could I just ask you a question, because there's a lot of lingo that you're very familiar with, but sometimes it's a bit.
Yes, go for it.
If one wanted to do like the 3 levels and basically then start with organizations and everything, I understand that it's very important to have the ICF exam passed and certification. Sorry, accreditation. But do you have to do level 1 certification and level 1 accreditation? Or you can do level 1 certification with 100 hours, continue to level 2 and level 3?
Okay, so depending on your goal, Rosella, so if your goal is the ICF ACC, you would go through this program as we've got listed here. So level 1 certification, followed by level 1 accreditation, followed by the mentoring. But for example, I'll just go back. If, for example, your goal is not ICF credentials, you might do level 1 certification. And then if you want to broaden your coaching knowledge, you can go across and do level 2 certification. So that's another option. But if you want ACC, you go down to accreditation. And you do need those hours of coach training to apply for ACC.
Like practically speaking, in an actual type of like working as a coach, like what would be the type of outcome if you go through the accreditation path towards the ACC, and what would be the one if you go towards much
it's a great question. I'm just going to go back to level 1 because everyone starts here, and after you gain this certification with us, you should go and be a coach for a while. It's not that you can't coach with just this, you can, and lots of people do. Some people probably coach too long with just this, like for years and years. I wouldn't recommend that. But, you know, for the first 3 to 6 months after you gain the certification, the best thing is to put it into practice. And you can get insurance as coach with this certification. You know, you're certified. You're good to go. It's just that there's always more. And really, you know, Tony and I have both done all of IECL's trainings, and I don't know about you, Tony, but I feel like I've still got more to do. You know, you don't really get to a point where, oh, I'm done. I'm finished. I'll never learn more about coaching. It's a kind of lifelong journey. However, you can coach after gaining this certification. Does that answer the question?
Not exactly. My question is, like, what kind of outcomes could one expect by going deeper, and what kind of outcomes by going broader? That's a little bit what because I'm sorry for everybody else if you have coaching background. I've only been coached. I've never actually been a coach. So for me, it's all quite new. So I'm actually trying to understand through the session if it's something that then at the end of it all it can be interesting. So there's two different paths, which I'm trying to understand.
Okay, it's a great question. What I'm going to do is just finish the rest of the presentation, and then let's come back to it. And if we do run out of time, we can make an offline time to chat further. Because yeah, it's a really good question. And I think what I'm going to show you next is going to help to fill in some of that detail. So one of the options, if you go across the top of our program, so level 1 certification followed by level 2 certification, you are deepening your knowledge as a coach and learning more of the IECL models and frameworks around coaching. It also then, after level 2 certifications, opens up these pathways. So some of our coaches are wanting to specialize. So for example, in narrative coaching, team coaching, the principles of organizational coaching, which is a pure theory subject, purely online. We also have the graduate certificate and graduate diploma with Charles Sturt University. So that's another option. And as you can see here, that the level 1 and level 2 certification are the first half of the grad cert with Charles Sturt. So there are a whole bunch of CPD options there. The pathway that goes downward, level 1 certification, accreditation, and mentoring, is purely aimed at gaining ICF's ACC credential. So it's very much focused on the ICF core coaching competencies. They're great competencies, so they're worth focusing on. They go into a huge amount of detail about what you are doing as a coach and how that shows up in a coaching session. So we see it as very much broader versus deeper. They're both good. It's not like one is better than the other. It's just they're different pathways depending on your needs. And, you know, one thing you might want to consider is doing level 1 and then having a chat with one of the faculty to decide where you're going to go next, if you want to go broader or deeper. I'll just go through the last slide, which is just to give a little bit of a sense of where we sit in the marketplace, because there are lots of other coach training organizations out there. So we just put together this little wheel, if you like, around why you might choose IECL. The program, we call it world-class for a reason. We have a metric called the Net Promoter Score, and this question we ask after every training: how likely would you be to recommend this training to others? And based on that metric, our classes are world-class. So anything over 50 is considered good. Anything over 70 is considered world-class, and our average at the moment is sitting around 85. We get lots of scores in the 90s and the 100s. So our experience really is that our alumni are the people who promote our courses. They literally do go out and tell everyone this is the course you need to do. So we're very proud of that score. We are aligned with ICF core competencies, as we mentioned. Therefore, the pathways are internationally recognized. As I mentioned earlier, the curriculum has been refined over almost 24 years. So we sit down at the end of every year and review everything and make sure everything is earning its place in the program and update it. The course is practical, it's experiential, it's taught by organizational coaches first and foremost. So they're teaching you from their experience of what works and what doesn't work, rather than from a textbook. We do have a network of alumni. So you join an alumni community once you have done level 1. We've got over 8,000 alumni, so it's a wonderful worldwide network of other organizational coaches. And we also have a very strong membership program, and membership is entirely designed to support you to develop as a coach, to develop your business, and also to develop your confidence and competence as a coach. So that's what the membership program is aimed at. And there are several events each week aimed at members. The partnership with Charles Sturt University, we did just mention. And the last thing I would say is IECL trains the competitors. So pretty much every level 1 program we have our competitors in the room. Most of the coaches that we find working in this region especially are people that we have trained. So that is the end of the official presentation. We do have about 12 minutes left. I'm aware there's a whole bunch of questions popping up in the chat room. Galina, for level 2, you need 500 hours of coaching practice. That's right. Well, not for level 2. For PCC application, you need 500 hours. To come into our level 2, we recommend that after level 1 certification, you have 25 hours of coaching practice before coming into level 2 certification. The 500 hours is what ICF requires for PCC. Does that answer the question? If Galina's on the line. John also answered that in the chat box. Sandy asks if the objective is to be PCC, which combination of courses do I need to take? So Sandy, for you, it would depend on where you are at now. If you'd like to unmute yourself and let us know if you've already done your ACC and you've already done some other training.
Hi, Mandy.
Hi.
I'm currently at ACC already, but intended to pursue the PCC accreditation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have your ACC. So we would be looking at how many hours of coach specific training you've already done and how many hours of mentoring and so on are within that. And then we would look at that alongside our trainings, and you would receive some recognition of prior learning. So it would be good to have a chat with you one-on-one about your situation, but probably the level 2 certification and accreditation pathway.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We can. Yeah. We reach out to.
Oh, sorry. Yes, please. I will be in touch with you, but let's make a time to have a chat.
Apologies, I've unmuted myself. My screen seems to have disappeared on me. So all I have is this. I've been trying to experiment with it, and I thought if I went off, then I would just disappear and I might not get back on. And it was because Human had sent me a fantastic link so we can organize a time together, and I'd copied and pasted that somewhere and then couldn't get back to the Zoom. But I have all of us here. So okay. I'm sorry, I can't see the chat box anymore. And I did just want to ask for level 1, is there at any point some kind of, coaching framework provided within that? I mean, like I said, I already use and teach the GROW model. I just wondered how it aligned with that, and if you could
yes.
that.
Okay, so we also base our level 1 on the GROW model. That is still the best foundational model out there, we believe. And in fact, GROW grows with you as you go through all the other trainings. In level 1, we give you the full toolkit that you need to start coaching. So the GROW model, some fantastic questions, and a whole bunch of other things. So level 1 is really all about the skills and tools. And we literally use the analogy of the tool belt, that you walk away from level 1 with the tool belt and the tools to pull out the right tool at the right time. So yes, that's what level 1 is all about. And I think, Tess, you asked earlier on in the session around becoming a one-on-one corporate coach. I think that was your question. Yes, level 1 is the course that does that.
Yeah, great, because I've been teaching it for a really long time, but I just don't have any certification myself. And so, and also would like to do some work on myself. So, thinking it's been a very long time since someone watched me coach, even though I teach it all the time. And I'm always coaching others on how they're doing. It's kind of to reverse the camera as well, get the accreditation. So in level 1, will I get, someone watching me and giving me feedback on my habits and style?
Yes. Absolutely. You can't avoid it, I'm afraid. No, but you'd actually be in good company. We often have people in a very similar situation to yours coming into level 1, who've been involved in coaching in some shape or form for many years, but haven't got the formal qualification. So yeah, that's the one. Vidya is asking, when is the next level 1 start? There every week or so there's another one starting in different time zones, Vijay, so we'll get in touch with you with some dates. Human's asking where you're based. A list of the topics covered. Anna, we can get something to you. I won't go through it all now in our last 7 minutes, but we can absolutely send you something. Jackie's asking about coaching teams as opposed to coaching one-on-one, and it's a great question. It is a different skill, and we do have a team coaching training. It's open to those graduates of our level 2, at least having done level 2 certification, because you want to have your individual coaching skills pretty much bedded down. You want to be quite confident and comfortable as a level 2 coach, and then you can come into team coach training. It is quite a different scenario. It's not the same skill. It's almost like a intervention, if you like, in a team's process, and it's a great course, but it's not in the basic training. What was the other question I saw there? Oh, Human, that was you. Okay, so
there's a question from Rosella around, does IECL put the alumni in contact with potential clients, or is that more up to the individual?
It is more up to the individual. However, what we do support you with is finding people to practice with. So through the membership program, we do both pro bono coaching programs and also peer coaching practice. So that runs on a regular basis, so that we put you in touch with a peer at your level to practice with. We don't get into providing paying clients. We do in membership talk quite a lot about how to develop your business, how to decide on your niche, how to market yourself, how to use LinkedIn as coach, and so forth. But we don't actually promise to provide you coaches. I know some of our competitors, coachees, some of our competitors do, but we're really not in that business.
I'm sorry, I'm going to put my hand up. I have one more question, which is often I like coaching from, a 360 tool, or my background is originally as an actor, so I often use role play, or even thinking about a presentation as a piece of raw data effectively. Is there any particular, 360 accreditational metric that you would recommend?
It's a great question. At IECL, we are diagnostic agnostic, so we like them all. We don't recommend any one over the others. Usually it's our clients that guide us in terms of coming to us and saying, we want to put everyone through this diagnostic, and can you coach off the back of it? And then we will put forward all the coaches we have that are qualified to use that diagnostic. But yeah, we like them all. There are probably half a dozen that we use most commonly. But they're all great conversation starters for coaching. They don't tend to be the conversation in the end. They tend to be the conversation in the beginning.
Yeah, just as the jumping off platform.
Exactly.
I love that terminology. That was a beautiful answer.
You do need to be very mindful. If I can chip in there, Tessa, you want to be very clear around for what purpose are you using the diagnostic?
Yeah.
And what is the diagnostic designed to address? So that will always determine, and there are many different types of diagnostics out there.
Absolutely. So I'm DISC accredited and have used that for team work, and then accredited in a 360 accreditation called LMAP. So I quite like 360, you know, a bit of paper and a bit of data initially to start off a conversation. So that's where that was headed. But it sounds like you just accumulate as many as you can in a lifetime, and that makes you more versatile.
And also, you know, get accredited in the ones your clients like, so that you can be more helpful to them is helpful.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
No worries. I'm just aware we're running out of time. And Teresa, thank you for repeating Sophia's question around the definition of coaching practice and how do you log it. In level 1, we give you the coaching log that ICF likes the best so that you can log it in the style that they like it. And the definition of coaching practice for ICF is that it be a pure coaching session. And we talk about that in level 1. So if you are a leader or a manager and you're taking a kind of a coaching approach to some of your meetings with your direct reports, that's not coaching and you can't log that. However, anytime that you contract with a coaching counterpart and sit down to coach them, and you actually coach them for the full session, you can log that. So we'll get very, very clear on the definition in level 1, and we'll provide you with the coaching log. And then it's up to you to begin logging your coaching. And it's one of those things. And the reason we set up membership is to help people get the hours up, because at the beginning, that's probably the hardest thing, is to find people to coach and to get your hours going. And especially, you know, when you're new and you're not so confident, you know, where are you going to begin? So membership is all entirely focused there.
Sorry, but Mandy, membership is still only the free hours. So you have to potentially find somebody to pay you for the first hours.
It's interesting. ICF, they say paid coaching for 75% of those 100 hours, but paid is, by ICF's definition, an exchange of anything of value. So if I coach you and you coach me, Rosella, that's paid because we've exchanged something of value. If we coach in a coffee shop and you pay for the coffee, then that's considered paid, and that's according to the ICF. So it doesn't have to be the $500 an hour to begin with. It can be any exchange of value. So it's not difficult to get the 100 hours.
And if you are an internal coach, so Rosella, if you're working in an organization and your organization asks you to formally coach people internally in your organization, it's part of your paid role, they are paid coaching hours. It's more that if it's leader as coach, you know, as Mandy said, if you're bringing more of a coaching approach, that's not formal coaching. But that doesn't prohibit you from moving from level 1 to level 2. So even as if you come into this program and you want to do level 1, and then you think, oh, I want to go and do my level 2 certification and you know, extend your knowledge and application of coaching. You know, so long as you've got approximately 25 hours of coaching between that level 1 and level 2, we welcome that, because we appreciate that not everyone's going to have that pure coaching, but so long as you've been doing enough of it to get a sense of the application of the skills. And because in level 2, we start to deepen that application quite a bit.
Okay, perfect.
I'm aware we're right on the hour. Sandy, I'm going to answer your question last before we close. When will the new level 1 and 2 courses start? So level 1 and 2 certifications are already running as we speak, and next week and so on. The level 1 and 2 accreditations that are new start in the new year. So you can register for them from next week, but they are starting in the new year. And yeah, the certifications are there now. Oh, Jackie, we can send you some links to team coaching and POC, and they are on the website, but they're probably getting a little bit lost in amongst all the level 1s because they run less often. So they're there, but they're probably a bit lost, but we'll send you some links. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I would encourage you to continue to pursue your interest in coaching. The world needs great coaches. Our mission at IECL is for everyone in the world to have access to a world-class coach. So hopefully you will become one of them and join us. It's lots of fun. We hope to see you again, and we will be in touch with further information very soon. Thank you.